Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Professor Jennie Hudson, clinical psychologist and researcher here at Black Dog Institute, who specialises in child and adolescent mental health. Today, we're talking about how parents can prioritise their own self-care, not just for themselves, but to better support the children they love. Thank you so much, Jennie, for joining us today.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on this such important topic.
Let's dive in. What are some of the biggest mental health challenges facing Australian parents today?
Yeah, parenting can be really hard. It brings a lot of joy and it is one of the most rewarding roles, but it can also be really challenging and really taxing for parents. A recent study from the Raising Children's Network showed that actually 1 in 3 Australian parents are experiencing burnout at the moment. Wow. Which is quite surprising, but in a way not surprising given the struggles and the pressures that parents are under, particularly this current generation of parents in Australia. Compared to previous generations, I think Australian parents at the moment are really struggling with a lot of issues that previous generations have not experienced. Their young people are experiencing more mental health problems than previous generations, and that places extra pressure on us as parents. And also there's been a reference to current generation of parents as being the sandwich generation. We're kind of sandwiched in between caring for our young children as well as caring for our parents, because we've had this shift in when we have our children, and also with our workloads and a retirement age and our length of lifespan as well, that all of these things are impacting on this current generation of parents that have to care for children as well as at the same time ageing parents. And so that kind of adds a lot of extra pressure for parents as well.
Really unique challenges for parents today that we haven't necessarily faced before.
Yeah, and we're also more likely to be in more complex family scenarios. Like we're more likely to have single parents, single mothers, single parents than in previous generations as well. So that also adds kind of more complexity to the parenting dynamic.
Yeah, definitely. Why do you think many parents struggle with self-care and looking after ourselves?
Parenting is not a solo job, but that's often where we're left with being a single parent or being 1 or 2 people looking after and raising a child. In previous generations and in other cultures, there is much more of an approach where we use the community. So that kind of old adage of it takes a village to raise a child. And we don't really have that at the moment. Our current society has shifted towards there's more social isolation, more loneliness, less community support. And so as parents, we're raising our children not with the village that we need to raise them.
Yeah. Why do you think so many parents struggle finding time for self-care, and why is it important to make that time?
I think different parents will struggle with prioritising their own needs for different reasons. For some parents, it might be that they don't see their needs as valuable. Maybe they were never taught how to value their own needs, or they may have been taught that that is your role as a parent, that you need to put other people's needs and values or put their needs before your own. And so that makes it hard for then parents to prioritise their own needs. For other parents, it may be they just don't have time. That is the one thing on their task list that gets dropped off because they just don't have time and energy to be able to invest in looking after themselves. But it is so important. If you think about that, put your own oxygen mask on before you look after your child's oxygen mask. And we don't think about that. We don't think about why that's so important, that we won't be able to breathe if we can't put our own child's oxygen mask on if we don't have our own air. So what can we do to look after ourselves so that we can be the best parents that we can be? When we're burnt out, and if 1 in 3 Australian parents are burnt out, we're going to be much less likely to be able to be the supports that we want to be for our children. To being a good enough parent, we need to make sure our children feel loved and valued and safe. And that's pretty much our primary goal. But when we're burnt out, it's really hard to deliver those messages to our children about how loved and valued and safe they are when we're irritable and cranky and not necessarily being the best parents that we want to be.
Really good points. I want to continue on with some of the self-care questions. What are a few simple ways that parents can actually prioritise their mental well-being and making time for their own self-care while still prioritising their kids?
I think reflecting on why you're struggling with prioritising your own needs. What is it about putting your own needs first that is difficult? Is it because you don't think you're valuable and that you don't, your needs shouldn't be looked after, or is it you don't have time? What is it that's driving that, not prioritising your own needs? And one of the benefits, we talked before about all of the negatives of being a parent in this generation, current generations, but one of the benefits is that we have access to so much more care and more information about how to be a good enough parent than in previous generations. Even though we're kind of more disconnected in many ways, we do have connection to information. And there's a lot of digital support and digital information out there that can provide you with support that you need and help you prioritise your own mental health, looking after those simple things, which sound simple, and we all know how important they are, but we often undervalue them, like getting a good night's sleep. That is so important, that we prioritise our own sleep and have good routines around sleep.
A common challenge for parents in general.
Yes, especially for newborn parents, and that's something that you kind of can't work around. But that idea of needing to, we benefit from having routines and going to bed at the same time. Often for parents too, if they, that's their only time that they have to themselves, and so then that might delay bedtime and then kind of contribute to feeling tired the next day. But undervaluing sleep, I think, is a bit of a pitfall, and that making sure that you do prioritise getting to bed and waking up at similar times, having good routines around eating and exercise. We know that it's really hard to do it. So I suppose another really important kind of simple tip is, where's your village? Who is your village? What are you doing to make sure that you have a village around you, and it's not just you bearing the weight of raising your child, your children? Who's in your support network? How can you facilitate more support and create that village? Because that's not what parenting was meant to be, and not meant to do it on your own. So how can you create that village? So trying to bring that support network, identify who that's going to be, because that social support and social connectedness is so important.
No, definitely. It's interesting what you say about the village, because villages look very different these days to what they have, and it's not normally the typical support, especially with, so many families that live overseas, and we don't have grandparents around, and, we live so far between each other. I know my village is a bunch of other mums, and there's so many different ways we can find that village that actually give us more support.
Yeah, and it's so important to being able to give you the energy, supporting other people as well when they need it, but then also getting the support that you need. Yeah,
definitely. How can parents recognise the signs that they are starting to get burnt out or they're struggling with their mental health?
Yeah, it's a good question to be able to look for those signs, to know what it is that, when you're getting to that point. We all experience stress, and that's normal. For me, it's when I start getting irritable and cranky. That's for me, okay, I need to do something. Things are out of whack because I'm, getting cranky and irritable with my kids, and I'm not saying the things that I want to be able to say to them, that I would like to be communicating. And it's, for me, that's my cue that I need to do something differently when I start to get irritable, or if my sleep is out of whack. Those are the signs of, can be a sign of burnout. When you're withdrawing from activities, that's also when you don't have the energy to be able to participate in activities that you used to enjoy. That can be a sign that that something might be going on, that you could reach out for help.
Yeah. What would you say to parents who are watching this today who feel guilty about taking time for themselves?
Yeah, it is a really common experience. I think it just comes when you have a child, just guilt comes alongside it. It is a normal part, and it is so hard. Like, I really struggle with feeling guilty about what should I be doing, how I should have been doing this differently, and I have a lot of knowledge about parenting, and I really struggle with, like, I should be doing it differently, I should be doing it better. But so I try to reflect on why it's important to me to be a good enough parent, and why I might have troubles prioritizing my own needs, and thinking about what I really want for my children, what I want to be able to pass on. So rather than kind of thinking about what other families are doing, what other parents are doing, what's important to me, what are my values, what do I want my children to learn from me in the way that I interact with them, and being able to model that in a way. So then it takes away some of the guilt that I'm focusing on the things that are important to me, not necessarily the things that are important to others, and what I think is valuable.
That's really good advice. I want to ask you some questions around current trends and pressures that parents are feeling today. How is social media and comparison culture, which you kind of have already touched on comparing other people, impacting Australian parents, especially mums?
We do get exposed as parents to a lot of what you should do and what other people are doing, and that kind of often impacts on what we think we should be doing, and kind of adds to that guilt we were talking about before as well, of like, oh, we should be doing this, what other people are doing. And so there is that kind of constant pressure that previous generations may not have experienced in the same way, experienced it in different ways at the school gate, but rather than necessarily all day when you can pick up your phone and look at what other people are doing. So kind of thinking about, there's a recent study actually that the Australian Institute of Family Studies did, and actually said that 60% of mums in particular felt this social pressure that they need to do it all, and this societal pressure that they need to kind of, do it all, which is a really hard expectation as parents to be able to do that. And I suppose it's reflecting again on what is important to you as a parent and what you value and what you want to pass on, rather than necessarily comparing yourself to others. Sometimes that comparison can be really helpful. Maybe there are things that you could pick up on and value that other parents are doing that could be useful, but that's a choice you can make. Do you want that for your children? Is this a value that you want to be passing on to your children? And kind of thinking about it from a reflective perspective, rather than, okay, just because so-and-so is doing it, I need to do it as well. Thinking about what is it that I want to pass on to my children and what's important to me as a parent.
No, that's really good advice. There's so much out there, from the perfect lunchboxes to different parenting styles. It's a lot of information at our fingertips. It's really hard not to compare, and it can get really confusing sometimes as which is best, which is the right way to go. Yeah. But I guess what you're saying is really just reflect on what's our values, what do we think is important for our children, and stick to our guns on that, and remove that comparison.
Is a perfect lunchbox what you want your kids to remember you by, or is it the cute little note that you might leave them in the lunchbox rather than the perfectly made sandwich, or or is it what they're going to remember as the hug you gave them before you left for school? Or, they're not going to remember the perfect lunches. So thinking about what it is, the values that you want your kids to be able to pick up from you. Yeah,
no, definitely. How do you think workplaces and communities could better support parents that they are interacting with, especially those who are juggling full-time work and caregiving at the same time, and they can see that there's a lot on a parent's plate these days, with finding that balance.
Yeah, I think workplaces that encourage family-friendly approaches, but also flexible working places for parents, and understanding that you aren't just a single person coming to work without a family, like understanding that you have a role outside of work. And for managers and executives who want the best out of their employees and want their businesses to thrive, a mentally healthy workplace is exactly what you want for your people to be more productive. So placing emphasis on things like families and acknowledging their roles outside of the workplace and their roles as carers and valuing that will make your employees more productive and more mentally healthy and better for the business in the long run.
Yeah, definitely. And just a couple of final, more reflective questions. If you could give one message to all parents out there on Parents' Day, what would it be? What are your words of wisdom, Jennie?
I think I'd come back to that point about the village. Like, who is your village? Where is your village? Who is part of that? And how can you draw on them more to build more connection and more support for you as a parent? Because it isn't a solo job. It is something that we should be doing as a community, and we haven't valued our parents and that role that parents play in our society as much as we should be doing. And we should, as parents, feel supported by the village around us.
Where can parents go if they need to get mental health support? If anything has resonated in our conversation, they're like, I need something a little bit more. I need to do a bit more reading, or I need more information. Where's the best place for them to go?
Probably the first step is your GP. Your GPs are great resources for being able to get you care. You can find psychologists independently, but if you would like a mental health plan, then your GP is a really great person who knows your medical history and can kind of connect you with the right care. We also have a lot of digital supports and availability of resources. If it's just reading materials, you can have a look at the Black Dog website. There's a lot of information there for parents. The Raising Children's Network is also a really great resource for parents around parenting, but there's also really great information about how to support your own mental health as well. And reaching out. I know there is still a lot of stigma around reaching out for help, but this is not something you should be doing on your own. It is not a solo job, as I've said. If you need that help, you're going to be a better parent if you and better in your role if you are more mentally healthy and you have the support that you need.
Jennie, thank you so much for sharing your insights today. It's a conversation that so many of us need to hear, and even if you've heard it before, need to be reminded of to live it in our daily life. And to every parent watching, your mental health matters. Taking care of yourself is one of the most powerful things you can do for your children, your family, and for you. If you would like more support, please visit the Black Dog Institute website for practical tools, expert advice, and free resources to help you along the way. And if you found this helpful, please feel free to share it with another parent or a carer who might need a little reminder today who matters too. Thank you so much for watching, and happy National Parents' Day.